1 year of work was necessary to get Jester up into condition, including the rebuilding of the foot of the mast, lot of stratification, and then the other major job was changing the motor, which is an old Yanmar, and I was able to recuperate the old Volvo Penta from Beulah because the new owner didn't wish to keep it. So after a lot of modification, eventually I got her in, and she's running very smoothly. So lots of work, but it was really, really worth it. Then the 1st of May, lots of my friends joined me at the boatyard owned by Richard and Valérie Varian at Port Bloc, and we had a terrific barbecue, lots and lots of friends. Julian, who'd bought Beulah, was there, and we had a great time, and then people came to visit Jester down in the water.
Par contre, c'est ça, il faut que tu changes de génois et que tu passes.
C'est-à-dire, j'ai deux écoutes là, et si je veux passer un petit peu au large, j'ai un ici et un là, parce que j'ai le truc plus simple.
D'accord. Oui,
avec les manies fabriquées pour là, et vachement largué.
Oui. Là, ça va bien.
Donc c'est le dynamo qui glisse dedans. Donc il suffit d'une aiguille creuse pour que tu rentres là et tu sors là et tu fais un bouton.
Mais là tu t'emmerdes pour faire
le sifflet de Bosco. Mais regarde,
le sifflet de Bosco.
Voilà.
At 1800 hours I left my mooring and then headed out into the Gironde. It was an hour before high water, and it was actually blowing 4-7 outside, so I was ready for quite a good pasting to start this voyage. Whoa, this is going to be hard work then. lucky I took it easy at midday, not eating or drinking too much, otherwise I think the result would be quite evident. I'm putting in the first reef on the mainsail. I should have put it on before leaving, but anyway, it's excellent training for later on. The first night was quite agitated, and I had to sleep on the floor between the two bunks, fully dressed with my oilies on and harness, ready to go out on deck, which I had to many times with the change of wind strength and direction. And then the next morning was a lovely sunrise. The wind had come right down, but we were tramping along towards the north, so a fantastic start, really, really pleasing. The approach to the notorious Rhode Island on the point of Brittany. In fact, I got the tides absolutely spot on, luckily, and the weather was very clement. and passed northwards great speed, but with very little effort. And then once past that, I eventually went round to the west of Witham, and from there into the Channel. So after a very rough crossing of the Channel, I arrived at 23:30 on Monday the 5th of May in a deluge of rain, but once I was behind the headland and into Cawsand Bay, it was fantastically sheltered, and I had a terrifically quiet night. And then the next morning it was fine weather, although obviously blowing over the tops, and I sailed in to Plymouth, and an hour later I was safely there. Queen Anne's Battery, one of my brothers and my dad, the skippers aboard Black Velvet along with Norman Bailey and Ewan Sotheby Taylor. Olivier and Sylvie, Independence, Jabber and Scallywag, $12 on the 11th of May, all the skippers were in the balcony of the Royal Western Yacht Club, and the starting gun was fired, but because the weather conditions outside were terrible and force 9 was forecasted, we all stayed put, and actually many of us, or many of them I should say, went to the bar and had a pint, and sort of tried to work out when the best time to go would be.
Oh yeah, definitely. Excellent. Well, that's very good.
Hey,
You got competition.
Oh, it's Pirates Week.
It is, yeah. Trying to outdo us.
I'm the source of that happiness. Start of the third Jester challenge to Newport. For those of you who don't know, Norm is an ex-US Marine Corps guy and past Commodore in Newport Yacht Club. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. And a single-handed sailor. And a single-handed sailor. 30 seconds. Aim it at Andy. 15, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go! Come on off!
Good luck to all the
and everyone else.
Well, this is the only race where all the challengers then retire to the bar to start the race.
That's absolutely right.
We must do this more often.
Very gentlemanly.
Fire the gun and then actually start 2 days later after the party.
Well, last one to the bar buys the round, you know. That's incentive to get there first.
Finally, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I made a dash across Plymouth Sound and sheltered behind Corsan Bay again, with the hope of getting an early start the next morning. I got away at 6 o'clock in the morning, and nice sail out into the channel, and the conditions had eased right down, although still bashing into headwinds. It was very satisfying, and I was at least 3 hours ahead of the others who didn't leave Queen Anne's Battery until about 9. Monday 12th of May, the Royal Navy doing a live firing exercise south of the Edison Light, and they obliged all shipping to keep clear, needless to say, and anyway, who am I to argue with that? When I'm down below in the cabin, a very easy way to find out whether Gwez is a bit hard pushed and in need of putting a reef in the mainsail is whether I can see the horizon or not when looking out of the side window. If I can't see the horizon, we're heeling too much and it's time to put a reef in. Tuesday 13th of May, Paul Mead on Independence closed up on me. In fact, he was the first and only other competitor I saw in the whole 70 days that I was out at sea. So it's great to have close contact. Paul stayed at close contact for 24 hours, and in spite of the little wind, he did pull away, and that's him in the distance, not in the foreground. Nice to have an easterly element to the wind, so running downwind, which is fantastic, making good time. And as always, I point the solar panel towards the sun so it gets the best angle and obviously the best charging. Then of course, come the evening or bad weather, I just take it down below. The electricity generator is deployed at about 3 hours a day. It seems to be keeping the battery nice and topped up. With only one bunk aboard, the leak cloth is absolutely indispensable. Very important to pay attention to personal hygiene, to keep clean and dry, and luckily I managed in the 2.5 months to keep totally free of itches and sorenesses, so I was well pleased. And of course washing is done in lukewarm water with about a yogurt pot or two of water, so not a big consumer, but very necessary. I often slept fully dressed with the harness on and ready to get up top, which was a prudent thing to do. The spinnaker was not overly successful because the rolling of the boat prevented getting really comfortably set. In bad weather I replaced the washboards with a very tightly fitting hatch, which is totally waterproof, and also it locks the sliding hatch cover in, so really no water came in through this way at any time. 11:45, Tuesday 20th of May, hit by a rogue wave to starboard, which knocked us over 90 degrees. Obviously the tip of the mast went into the water. Although she was only down for less than half a minute, we came straight up again. I was trying to cook at the time, and a bottle of olive oil, and luckily plastic, exploded on the roof of the cabin, as did a jar of herb de Provence. So the wretched boat ended up being very, very slippery, and it's terrible trying to clean it all up. Also, a lot of water came in through the Dorade, which burst its seal. So a lot of cleaning up to do now. I got thrown across the cabin, and my back broke the swivelling instrument panel, so all the instruments were dangling and swinging in all directions, which I managed to sort out in the end. And of course it did cut my back very, very close to the spine, but luckily no serious damage. Once I'd sorted myself out, I managed to get up on deck and deploy the sea anchor, which tended to keep the stern or the stern quarter up into the waves, but quite alarmingly it did wander off, which allowed slamming waves to hit the starboard side again and again and again, about every 10 minutes, and this went on for a couple of days. So it was exhausting, and I'm glad it's eased up now. I've lost the winch handle and half the water supply, so I've really got to go about 300 miles further south and do a stop in the Azores to sort things out. It's a bit out of the way, but totally necessary now. Zero 0300, 27th of May, I sailed into the outer harbour of Praia da Vitória on Terceira and in the Azores, and the next day I was able to trace around and find a spare winch handle, get more water, sort out all sorts of small problems, and get myself clean, revittle a bit, and generally get a bit of strength back for the next part. That was a tough 13 days getting here, but it's all very necessary. in spite of the sun, it's really quite cold. The wind chill has brought the temperature right down. But glad to be on the move again. I never cease to be delighted by the antics of these gorgeous dolphins. They keep me such company. No, it's a great joy. Evening of 30th of May then, passing between Flores to the south and Corvo to the north, the most westerly of the Azorian Islands. Wonderful sunrises and sunsets give total rhythm to this voyage. They never cease to appeal, and one as exciting as the other. Passed a very few merchant shipping, and when I did, I always asked for a up-to-date weather forecast with the VHF. On well over 50% of the time I got given one, although it seldom actually agreed with the conditions I was experiencing. Oh, this is really so beautiful, making good progress, a little bit further south than I'd like, but never mind, we're comfortable and morale is high. No, this is good. Seventh of June then, with the Irish whiskey fruitcake bought in Australia, and of course a bottle of lovely champagne, of course from France. And yeah, this is going to be a nice celebration with some champagne for the boat, and of course some for Neptune, and of course there's some for myself. So yeah, at last nice weather for my birthday. the headwinds, the waves and the Gulf Stream are all dead on the nose. Was actually giving me 140 degrees between each tack, which enabled only about 15 miles a day. And here's some pictures of my hands, which got very, very bad with too much water. And of course now the bad weather has come again. It's the 11th of June and we're into force 8 conditions with difficult seas, so I've got both the sails down, tightly furled onto the boom, and I've got the sea anchor out again. Hopefully it's going to keep the stern out into the waves and try and avoid the slamming, although slamming is happening and it's all very frustrating. We're going back at 3 knots after all those hard-earned miles to the west. We're now actually going quite quickly to the southeast again. So difficult decisions have got to be made soon. Wednesday, 11th of June, at times it's almost survival tactics. There's some very big waves that come about every, 15 minutes, which fairly knock weather about. However, I'm glad to have the sails down. I think I'm minimising damage to kit this way. But I'm very seriously considering abandoning the Jester challenge this year. I'm just not going to make Newport in time to have time to get back before all the tropical storms come up the coast. So I think I'm nearly ready to decide. Thursday, 12th of June then, I've put the sails up and we're sailing back towards the Azores. I've actually abandoned the Jester challenge. I've sent messages to all those concerned. It's a great shame, but I need to save the boat. I'm worried about the forestay because the roller isn't working, the jib roller isn't working, so I've got to get back and repair it. This sequence is me deploying the electric generator, which consists of the generator itself, which is fixed permanently onto the push bed. Then there's 15 meters of 14mm cord, then a 1 meter long bar of steel, solid steel, and the end of which is 2 propellers, 2 small ones for more than 5 knots, perhaps 6 knots, and 2 bigger ones for rather less, and that gives me plenty of electricity, and I leave it out for 3 hours a day, and that seems to be alright. I do actually unclip and unshackle the rope each time, because when I bring it back in again, there's a bunch of knots, and to undo the knots I hold on to the propeller end and let the rest of the rope go out into the sea, which will actually unravel it very, very quickly, ready to be deployed the following day. Even the shackle I tie on with a steel wire each time to stop the vibrations, making it shake loose. So meticulous work, but very necessary, and absolutely at no time have I been short of electricity on my single battery, which is always topped up very, very well. Indescribable beauty. I'm so privileged to be able to be out here and enjoying this. The calms are so frustrating. With the swell, the sails flap terribly. So in the end, if there's really no chance of wind, I just get them down to avoid too much damage. But what's really odd is the boat sort of gets up into a metronomic roll, which gets worse and worse and worse. I mean, it gets quite ridiculous. I don't know what the angle it is, but it must be sort of 20 degrees each side. So very, very uncomfortable. So I tried putting the sea anchor out, the sea brake off to one side, which actually does dampen the rolling movement. So to be used only when stationary like this. My swimming pool is 4 kilometres deep and pretty chilly actually. 1800, 21st of June, I had to row into this harbour in Flores because the diesel had packed up once again. Water got into it when I capsized. Welcomed the first night to a lovely barbecue on the beach, and then the next 2 or 3 days I spent exploring this most gorgeous island. I managed to recuperate a spare forestay from this wreck, in fact of an English boat, and then the next day I went back to get a couple of pulleys from the top of the mast, but the customs guys found me and they said, look, this is Portuguese property, and told me to be off, which I did, but I did actually get the pulleys. Then I took a €2.30 bus trip around the island, up the west coast, and in fact I was the only passenger, so the driver offered to stop the bus now and again to let me take pictures of different gorgeous geological features. It's quite amazing, very hilly. Lots of hortensias everywhere, volcanic plugs, plunging views down to the coast. And when I got up to Fasha, a little fishing port on the coast, I had the most wonderful fish meal there, and then a 14-kilometre walk back that afternoon, which was just exquisite, a most wonderful day. The next day I had less luck. I got a lift up onto the mountains and tried to walk around the crater rim of the volcano, but very low cloud and I really didn't see a thing. Then eventually on the 26th of June I left Flores, and some great friends I met there, and headed down towards Horta, which is 130 miles towards the main group of islands, and in the right direction for the way home. Good tailwinds, in fact it was very windy at the beginning, and it looks like I'm making excellent time. I can already see the island of Fayal on the starboard bow, and it won't be much more than 24 hours door to door. The painted quays of Horta, and as always, the peak of Pico in the distance. What a great place to be. I love it here. I really love it. With Fred and Camille, we hired a car and went out to the volcano at the extreme southwest end of Fayal, which is the site of the volcano which erupted in 1958 and actually made the island a couple of miles longer than it was, and we had a great time. Then we walked the 8-kilometre rim of the caldera in the centre of the island, which was super, really nice. I visited the plaque that Roger Fitzgerald and myself made when we were here in 2012. Wednesday, 2nd of July, left Horta for the Gironde, and within half an hour I'd caught a most wonderful striped bonito, which in fact gave me 9 steaks, about an inch thick each one, which I put in the cool box, most of them, and ate them 2 by 2, cooked up with coconut milk, and yeah, some really good feasts. A lovely way to end my 2-week stay in the Azores. A very close encounter with a whale who surfaced a few meters to port, and then she went round and round the boat for 5, perhaps 10 minutes, and then eventually pulled away. Now she's probably about 20 meters long and maybe 60 tons, makes my 2.5 tons feel very vulnerable, but it was just a delight to see her. I mean, just fantastic. Had a couple of days of running dead downwind, which was very nice. In fact, the wind got up to a good force 6, and maybe even a bit more at times. And curiously, I found it was easier to have 3 reefs in the main, and the boom stayed out right to the bows, with the jib totally furled. And we were surprisingly stable, and the wind vane actually steered us exactly 180 degrees from the wind, and every time we started to veer she brought us bang on course again. I mean, I couldn't do better than that as a helmsman. So very pleasing, although not a conventional way of sailing downwind. Last night at sea and the last fish caught, and then we had the most terrible thunderstorm at 2 o'clock in the morning of the 19th of July, about 50 miles west of the Gironde. Lightning all around. I managed to get both sails totally down, and we were making 3 to 4 knots under bare poles, but in the right direction. And then I had the most lovely sail the last 50 miles with a tailwind up the Gironde estuary, past the Phare de Cordouan, and then finally at lunchtime into Port Bloc, which is where Gweza lives. And there I was met by Ruth, and in fact we ate the fish I caught the night before with some rice, packed up the boat and came home.